you don't know about the hardships and the heartaches and the way measles in particular can break up a family.
Impacts from measles and rubella. Two families share life before the MMR vaccine.
She just basically didn't develop past the 5 or 6-year-old.
A third talks about a rare side effect.
So tell me Shaylee's story, kind of starting from the beginning, what happened.
She was a completely healthy toddler, and we took her to get her MMR vaccine at about 26 months old. And a month later, she woke up with bruises on her legs.
Welcome to the Wellness Files, a podcast where we explore practical tools, research, and real stories. I'm your host, Kari Beal, and today we're hearing the full interviews from 3 families. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining this special edition of the Wellness Files. In this podcast today, I want to give you a little bit of background before we go to the interviews. So I will tell you a little bit about each family and why we are covering this. This was initially a story that I did in our newscast. It was about 8 minutes long, but I thought it was worth it to bring you the full interviews with each of the family members. So as of the day I'm recording this is November 18th, we have had 49 cases of the measles related to an outbreak around Spartanburg County, and we've had 52 cases so far across the state in South Carolina this year. Now, the CDC reports that there have been 1,723 cases of the measles across the U.S. in 2025, and 3 people have died. Those people who passed away were not in South Carolina. Now, in this podcast, we're not trying to tell you what to think. Rather, I hope to empower you with transparent information. I think all of us are just trying to do what's best for our kids. And that's why when I did this story, I was trying to hear from both sides. I really want to understand what people are going through and then bring the data, and we can all come to a conclusion of what we want to do for our own families. So the 3 people I'm interviewing, first is Christine Castle. Her mother got rubella, and that was when she was pregnant. So her sister was born with rubella syndrome. Then I interview Emmy Herman. Her sister got measles when she was 9 years old, and then her sister developed encephalitis and had permanent brain damage. And then finally, we hear from Deirdre Downs. Her daughter developed a rare side effect from the MMR vaccine. It's known as ITP, and it can affect your platelets. It is life-threatening. So we talk in depth about that. But first, we will hear from Christine. Now, I do want to give a little background on her case. So rubella is also known as the German measles, and this can be very dangerous for someone who is pregnant. It can lead to birth defects for the unborn child. For someone who just gets the German measles, rubella, it can cause a rash, other symptoms that might be similar to the measles. And I do want to note that for this interview with Christine, I interviewed her at her home. So you may hear a little bit of background noise, and there was a cat, or actually 2 cats, that joined us.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about you and your sister and kind of what happened several years ago before your sister was even born.
Well, let's see, my sister is 65 now, and actually 66. She was born in 1959. So while my mom was pregnant with my sister, they figure about 7 months, I had a cousin that got the measles, and they didn't realize how it affected her until later. My mom kept saying that there was something wrong, and we lived in New York at the time, and they eventually took her into Mount Sinai in New York City and did a ton of tests.
And this was on your cousin?
This is on my sister.
Oh, this is on
after she was born.
After she was born. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry, I got a little bit confused there.
Yeah, my cousin definitely got the measles.
Okay.
So we know
So
that.
your cousin got the measles. So did your mom realize that she had gotten, you think it was rubella?
Yes,
which
is
is
rubella.
I think to explain to people, that's the German
measles.
So did your mom know that she got rubella while she was pregnant?
No.
She didn't even realize?
No. Other than, not looking back, she kind of like felt a little ill, but she didn't break out in any,
Rash.
rash or anything like that. But they can basically look at the time frame of when my sister's brain stopped developing, and what brain cells would be, I guess, producing at that time. So she can't read or write. She can kind of memorize colors, and we, for her to write her name, we have to constantly just have her write it over and over again. So it's not any brain cells. It's just all repetitive.
Yeah. So kind of just rewinding. So you think your cousin got measles. Do you think that was rubella? Or do you think that was the American measles?
It was rubella.
And so then you think that's how your mom got it while she was pregnant. And then your mom had your sister. At what point did they realize something wasn't quite right?
Around, well, my mom kept saying that she just didn't, I mean, she was their third child. There's 6 of us all together, and I'm the youngest. And, she had 2 other children, so she could see that her development wasn't like the others. And, but, it's not, the reading or writing yet until when it started school. And then she just could not, comprehend any of that. So then that's when they took her to New York and had testing done on her.
And so she was maybe like 5 by that time?
Yeah, about 5, 6 years
5?
old. Yeah.
6. And so what did they find? That was Cedars-Sinai, you said?
Yeah.
And what did they find out?
They said that she, questioning, looking back, going through how her brain cells and like in her brain and how she functioned. They said that they felt a rubella baby. They call it rubella syndrome.
Congenital
Yeah.
rubella syndrome, because it's passed on from the
Right.
mom in the womb. And so you got that diagnosis. She was around 5 or 6. And what was it like, growing up together as sisters?
It was hard. Fonda's a joy. She really is. She's always happy. But it's like having a 5-year-old around. So, her biggest fear is getting lost. So, because she could never, let someone know like her address or anything like that. She can't, she wouldn't know how to find us.
I think you said she kind of has the brain of a 5-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she says some words, funny, and so we'll laugh, and then she gets upset. Like, I tried saying it.
Yeah.
And so, but she's a lot of fun. But growing up, it was hard because, as a kid, having other people come over, or friends of yours come over, a lot of people just stare. When they figure out there's something wrong, they just, it's different for them. It's not like it's, and through the years, you can understand that, when someone's different, people just don't understand it. But growing up with it, it was difficult. Like, I got a lot of fights in school. Yeah, absolutely. And in the beginning, she went to our regular school before they put her into, they call it BOCES up there, but there's different
I grew up in Syracuse, so I know.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. And until she was transferred to there, and they actually had started BOCES up, it was hard for her to be in the same school as you, because you hear the other kids making fun of those kids in those classes. So, but it also humbles you to realize that, everybody has, something.
Yeah.
So,
for your sister, do you know what rubella syndrome does? Like, do you know what parts of the brain it impacts? Or do you know how it works?
I don't know really how it works. All it was kind of explained to me was that she didn't have the later development for the brain cells, for the reading and the writing and the comprehension of a lot of things. She just basically didn't develop past the 5 or 6-year-old.
Do you remember the measles or rubella outbreak as a child? Do you remember it?
I do. I can remember, being quarantined, but like we lived on a road that had all of my cousins on it. So, we had 3 aunts and uncles by us and my grandparents. So it was, just our Rogers Hill, we called it. And, we were out every day, and the thing is with the outbreak, and I mean, I can almost remember, I think I actually had the measles, but I don't think, because I was young, I don't think, later on, but I do remember, I don't know,
you might be.
Yeah, I keep doing this because I remember my like whole neck like swelling up, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I truly don't remember. If I did, I was very young. I know I definitely had the chicken pox.
Yeah, I actually remember myself having the chicken pox.
Yeah.
And so,
but this was before there were any vaccinations. There wasn't anything like that.
Yeah. How did people view measles back then?
Scary. Nobody wanted them. I don't think people really knew what the outcome was going to be as far as,
He's no background noise. Yeah, it's a cat. We have a cat here.
I don't think people really understood like how it could affect in utero, And
what do you know? What year?
It's kind of like encephalitis or swelling of the brain. And
do you know what year your sister was born?
My sister was born in 1959 in March. Yeah. So I think this shot wasn't even produced till like 62, maybe. Yeah, somewhere around there.
I think I will check that. But yeah. So knowing your sister's story, and then knowing that there was a vaccine developed after the fact, what are your views on vaccines?
My views are I get vaccinated for everything. I believe in science. I believe that, it has eradicated it. It almost totally got rid of it. Like around 2000 or whatever.
Yeah.
So, it works, and I do believe there are people that, can get vaccinated and have a reaction to it. I mean, there are things in shots that people could be allergic to. I have a daughter that is allergic to peanuts, eggs, cantaloupe, a lot of things. So yeah, that can happen. But I think in the long run, the amount of people that have a reaction to the amount of people that could be affected and children be affected, and even people that are, cancer patients, things like that, have a autoimmune disease, I think it really helps them.
Yeah. Because I have spoken with a woman who her daughter took the MMR vaccine, and she is one of the few adverse reactions her daughter developed. I'll let you get that. Yeah. Her daughter developed, it's called ITP. So that's where your platelets stop forming. You need your platelets to clot your blood. Otherwise, you can bleed out. Or you can internally bleed. So her daughter had bruises all over her body, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And according to literature, ITP happens to about 1 in 25,000 kids who get the MMR vaccine. So as you can imagine, as a parent, it definitely freaked her out. So for some parents, who experience not just side effects like a rash or something around the injection site, but maybe for parents who have really experienced something serious, what would you like to say to some of those parents?
I would thank them for trying, to having their children vaccinated. And I truly feel bad for them that their child had a reaction. but in the long run, I think that it will help more people than hurt, a few. We just don't know, who's going to be affected and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
But you definitely wouldn't want a 5-year-old for the rest of your life. It is very difficult. I think I feel bad for both sides. I really do. And I think both sides have a good argument, but in the long run, I think we really have to look at the statistics of how many truly will help. And the only way I think we're going to get out of this debate is, time. Time will tell. When more and more people get affected from not having the vaccinations.
Do you think for the people who do experience what they call a vaccine injury, maybe there should be some more research on maybe why it's happening?
Absolutely.
To some of those people?
I think there's not enough research done. But unfortunately, we keep cutting, financing to help with research, to, fund those programs that, now there's so much chronic disease going on, and, there's just so much being cut that, if we could find out the causes for a lot of this stuff, I just really think that our health is really important, and the outcomes affect people's lives, not just for the moment that it happens, but like Fonda, it's the rest of her life, where she could have been normal. She could have.
We didn't mention her name was again, Fonda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
you should have said that at
Fonda. Yeah. So, she was named after a racetrack. So up in New York, actually, Fonda, it's a little town.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I don't know. It's there's strong debates on both sides, but I do know that her life could have been much easier.
Fonda's.
Yeah, it truly could have been. My mom was always worried about who was going to step up, when she was gone. So many of children like her are put into homes, hostels, things like that, because they're a long commitment.
And so you split taking care of your sister, correct?
I basically take care of her. Yeah.
And then who's
but
taking
I
care
have
of her right now?
5 other siblings.
Okay.
So right now she's down visiting my older sister in Florida for the month.
Okay.
So so when we can, we try to share a little bit, but I mostly take care of her. My mom didn't want her. She likes her things. She has, she's a little kid, so she's got her room with all her toys, and she likes a bass. So she just didn't want her to be, spread out among all of us. But I'm sure all my siblings would, help whenever, they do. They help whenever they can. So, yeah.
Great. Any advice you have for other families who might be dealing with rubella syndrome?
Just hang in there, I'm sure it has affected every child differently, to the content of how it affected their child. But, I do know that she has a lot of love to give. She's really, she's fun to have around. I have every season, I have Christmas, I have Halloween, I have, she loves the holidays and still believes in everything. So, so that fun never goes away. But, I do know how hard it is to be a caretaker, and how hard it was on my parents to, you know, have always have had her around. You're definitely not alone because she's your little shadow. I call her my echo everywhere we go.
Yeah.
So, and that's hard. It's hard to be a caregiver 24/7. So
Yeah. All right.
So
Well, thank
I
you for
feel
sharing your
for them.
story. Yeah.
yeah, you're welcome. I see so much online of, people just not being understanding, and just try to see the other person's point of view and not make it so mean. We can all have our decisions on what we do, but just remember you have to live with um those decisions later down the road when it doesn't go exactly how you thought it would be. It's good to listen,
Mhm.
um, to those who have lived it. That's all the advice I can really give.
All right, coming out of that interview, I just want to read some statistics. So, according to the CDC, during the rubella outbreak in 1964 to 1965, 11,000 pregnant women lost their babies due to the virus, and 20,000 babies were born with rubella syndrome. So, next we will hear from Emmy Herman. Her sister got measles in 1960 at the age of 9, and this was before there was a vaccine for the virus. Her sister then developed encephalitis. So, this is inflammation of the brain. It can cause permanent neurological damage and even death. According to Encephalitis International, about 1 in 1,000 children who contract measles will develop encephalitis. About 10 to 15% of those children will die, and a further 25% of patients will be left with permanent neurological damage. So here's Emmy's story.
Tell me a little bit about where you live, and then we'll go into, kind of what happened to you as a child and your sister.
Sure. I lived in Nassau County, New York, and I was raised in Rockland County, which is just north of the city. And I grew up there with my mother, father, sister. That we were a family of four. Um, we moved to Rockland in 1959, and about 1960, when my sister was 9 years old, she contracted measles. And so it quickly escalated into fever, hospitalization, and the doctors basically said my sister was probably not going to make it. She went into a coma, um, and she was in a coma for about 5 weeks.
Wow.
And my mother didn't give up hope. She was there every day. I remember being shuttled from one neighbor to the next. My father worked. He had to work. The bills started to pile up. And miraculously, my sister came out of a coma. Um, and it was uh, it was a long haul after that. I mean, we thought that or my parents, because I was only 6 years old at the time.
Your older sister, since
My older sister, yes, and she was always emphatic about making that known. One of her quirks as a result of measles was she had a personality change, so she was always saying she was the older sister. I mean, I always liked to be younger. She was emphatic. She was the older sister because she lost so much, and she felt that she was different. She knew she was different. She knew she wasn't the bright, um, really, really bright child that she used to be. She struggled a lot. She had major personality changes. I remember visiting my sister at the hospital. I couldn't go into the hospital in those days. Children just weren't allowed. So when my sister came out of a coma, um, I remember my parents brought her to the window, and I was in this vast parking lot. And I remember looking up and waving to her. and her wave and her veracity was just so different than what I remember. Her whole being just changed, and that was a result of measles encephalitis, which was the diagnosis she got when she went into a coma.
So when she came out of this coma, you said you noticed some big changes. I remember you saying one of them was music. Tell me about that.
She was a wonderful piano player. She played music. My parents bought her a piano, which went wherever she went afterwards. Um, and she learned to play piano at a very young age, and she played beautifully. And when she came out of the hospital and started to, first of all, she had to learn to walk again. She had to learn to feed herself.
It's kind of like a stroke then.
Well, I don't know if they called it a stroke.
You're not a stroke, but like that's what you have to do after you experience a stroke. You kind of have to learn
Understood.
uh,
Um,
how to do things again.
yes, everything, basic skills. So, the measles encephalitis left her with cognitive deficiency. She had been at the top of her class, and now she was just getting by. And musically, her, piano skill, she still could sight read, but every other note was a clunker. But she persevered. She really did persevere. Um, but in school, she just got by barely. She was moved to a class for, oh, they used to call it non-regents, or the slower track, where she had really been at the top of her class. So that really changed her personality, and emotionally, it was hard for her to deal with. And at that time, there were no social services, and, my parents and our house became pretty dysfunctional. Um, you know, uh, she couldn't help it, but we couldn't help our emotions either, and, how our feelings were toward her, you know.
Because you said she was kind of a little erratic and emotional, much more than what you'd normally see for a child.
Right, right. She had this one thing that was constant was her whenever we were gonna leave to go somewhere, or to leave the place that we were at, she would fuss and fight, and she would always bring up something and embarrass me, embarrass my parents, just say things. She wanted attention. She didn't know how to get it, and she didn't know how to get help, and we didn't know how to get help for her either. I mean, there were no social services in schools. Today, thankfully, there are so many ways to deal with emotional changes and problems from an illness, from an organic brain illness is what was her diagnosis. And, you can't change the brain once it's, damaged like hers was, yeah.
And so what was the rest of her life like? She grew up to be an adult, kind of describe that a little bit.
She did. She was feisty. I always think that, if the tables were turned, she probably would have figured out how to help me if I was the one who was sick, because she was feisty. She, uh she would disappear from the family a lot when she was 18. She left excuse me, she left the house, and, she took odd jobs. She, took dancing jobs, because she was pretty, and so people hired her, but they didn't realize they were dealing with an adult who really was functioning like a 12-year-old, at a 12-year-old level. So she was in and out of the family. We were really concerned about her being, but she was such a problem that when we were home, that when she disappeared, my father actually sighed a bit of relief. He hoped that wherever she was doing okay. And he couldn't get her out of his mind. It really made him turn inward. So yeah, so she would come back into the family every so often. Um, when I got married, she showed up at midnight at my door with some strange guy, and you know, we let her in, and she just wanted to know, why why we didn't help her or care for her or spend enough time with her. And she she just didn't understand that, we did love her, we tried to help her, but she would sabotage a lot of our interventions, if you will. We did go to family services, Jewish family services offered counseling, but my father couldn't take it. My sister got angry. My mother tried really hard. When I was finishing college, she started to go to community college and took psych classes to try to work work out for herself as much as my sister, if she could help my sister. If she could help my sister. Um, she sh she was always she knew that she got sick from measles as she got older.
She
She did.
understood.
She understood that.
Yeah. Can I rewind a little bit?
Yeah.
Tell me what your sister was like before she contracted measles.
Before she contracted measles, she was creative. She was smart. My parents used to tell me she used to correct the teachers when they, misspelled or did an addition problem or something. She was the one to correct the teacher. She was the top of her class. She played piano, she was, creative with art, which was very helpful for her afterwards too. Art was something she always went back to. Um, she I used to call her the Betsy Johnson because she was a little avant-garde and different with her creativity.
Do you
She
remember
was
what piano songs she could play? Do you remember any?
well, I remember her first teacher was, Violet Reiser, and, Violet Reiser wrote her own pieces, so Marcy would play her pieces, and popular songs, she played Strangers in the Night, um, and, she loved, all things, like a lot of themes from TV shows and then classics. She learned, when she took piano lessons, she learned classical pieces, sonatinas, Kula, and, um, she was always she my mother's favorite, piece was Fleur de Lis, is that it? Fiorelise.
I actually don't know piano songs. So, how well, I'm not the one to ask. I didn't play piano growing up.
Yeah, she did. She would play the theme songs for the California Raisins. She would play commercials. I mean, she just was um very creative, really creative. And she, ask her to do something. Oh, yeah, sure. She could do it. She said she could do it. And, a little of that stayed with her, or I should say that really motivated her, and her strength probably got her through a lot because she could do uh anything even if she didn't think she could. I mean, she would say, "Yeah, I'll try that." So she was pretty, outgoing, and she got herself on a TV show in the late 60s. It was called The Gong Show. And so, that was Chuck Barris production from
Yeah.
60s and 70s. She could talk her way into anything, and
If
she
she
knew
could talk, she could function, but you kinda knew, she wasn't fully there. Is that kinda what you're saying?
her cognitive, ski her skills, her math, she kind of stopped at age, I guess when they tested her. Afterwards, her learning kind of peaked at age 12. I mean, her memory, her math, and um, crucial critical thinking skills. That was where she really lacked in. Bad judgment, couldn't read a room.
Mhm.
Those kinds of social cues. She really needed help with that, and we didn't know how to get her that help, or my parents didn't.
How did you feel when you saw her go from, this brilliant piano player and academic, and then you saw the change?
It was hard for me. It really was. To this day, I still kind of get choked up because I have a lot of guilt. I feel like, I could have been nicer to her. She was bullied in school. Um, she lost many of her friends. Um, I had a lot of friends. I it's hard. It's hard even today for me to know that, she she went from something to something, really um celebrated by a lot of people, to something that people just, shunned, and I was embarrassed. It's like, she went into the hospital as one sister and came out totally different. She really robbed a fun relationship, that we had.
And it wasn't her fault. It was just
And it wasn't her fault. It was because of measles encephalitis. I mean, you know, and at the time it was 1 in 1,000 who would get
Mhm.
that severe case, but that's a lot of cases when you multiply it times how many people there are, in the United States. That was the statistic then.
Yeah. Did you ever get measles?
I've been asked that before, and I got the vaccination in 1963, but I don't remember. I know how highly contagious measles is. You can be in a room where the person is left um, for 2 hours, and the measles virus is still clinging in the air, and I don't think I got the measles from her. And
She was in quarantine, it's my
Well,
understanding.
yes, she
Mhm.
was, she was, but, she was home until she was in quarantine, but I didn't. I remember after, giving birth to my first child, I was told my titers were very, very low for German measles, of all things, which is a totally different virus. But because it's a combination, vaccine, MMR, I got that as soon as my daughter was born. I got the vaccine before I left the hospital. So, I remember having chickenpox well, then I got an attenuated case of German measles, but I don't know. I didn't, did you? No, because you had the vaccine.
Yeah, yeah. What do you mean you got an attenuated case of the chicken?
Well, when I got it's a live vaccine.
Yes.
So I remember I was home with my firstborn.
Polio is not live, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, no.
I was talking to myself a little bit there. Yeah, so you said the chicken pox is a live vaccine, go on.
And so is, the MMR, the measles vaccine. When
Mhm.
I got it, I was home, feeding my daughter, and all of a sudden, I started to get a rash, and I got a fever, and I called the doctor, and he said, "It's fine. Keep breastfeeding. You're fine. It's just, I got a reaction from the shot." Um, and, after a day, I was fine.
Mm.
But I always say to people who, question getting reactions to shots is, it certainly is better than getting the disease. It's certainly better. And if you have a reaction, maybe it would have been much worse if you got the disease,
Mhm.
like if you got a reaction from the shot.
Yeah. So, I'm actually interviewing somebody who had a side effect to the MMR vaccine. It's called ITP. So this happens, your platelets stop forming. It's a rare side effect. Happens to about 1 in 25,000 kids who get the vaccine. Um, but what happens is since your platelets stop forming, your blood doesn't clot. So you could bleed out externally or internally. So this is unfortunately what happened to one person in my area to her daughter. Um, and so I think she just has some questions, about what's safe for her daughter. Should her daughter take other vaccines? And I think it's a fair question to look at. Um, and I think other parents, they hear about these stories and they're trying to make the best decision for their own kids. So when you hear about a story like that, 'cause she's not the only one, unfortunately, there are these cases out there that happen, and we don't know why. We don't. What would you want those parents to think who are just trying to figure out what's the best to do for their kids?
Um, I would say that vaccines have been studied, especially the measles, the MMR vaccine has been studied time and time and time again and again. And it is the safest, one of the safest vaccines that you can give your child. And it's a gift to be able to do that for all eligible people to have the vaccine. Um, because, I appreciate you giving me this time to tell my sister's story, because if that could save one life, it's a legacy that, many people can't claim. And she would appreciate that too. She, my sister, unfortunately, was looking forward to getting the COVID vaccine in 2020. But she didn't make it. She didn't make it in time.
You said she died of COVID.
That's a whole other story and for another time. But yeah, I'm her advocate now, for it. And uh I would tell parents who are on the fence to talk to their doctors. I mean, the science is not really up for debate. It shouldn't be a debatable issue. And I just feel that you know, parents put seatbelts on their kids automatically, make sure they wear helmets. A vaccine to save them from a vaccine preventable disease today is to me, um, the only thing that is is going to really uh, be beneficial for them.
Yeah. Kind of going back to where we were, what do you want parents to get out of this? Even if their kid has had some side effects, or if they're just a parent trying to figure it out, what do you hope people take away from it?
Um, I hope people talk to a trusted doctor. Talk to, don't get their information on social media. Don't Google. I mean, sure, Google, it's always good to know, but check with somebody at a hospital, check with your pediatrician, um, and, just do a little digging into the history of this vaccine and how it went from hundreds of thousands of cases. And after the introduction of the vaccine, it went down to scant few. But we may lose our elimination status this year because I think last I looked, we're close to 1,600 cases.
Mhm.
Last year,
We're at 2025. Yeah.
in 2025, the end of 2025. Last year, by comparison, there were 250 or 60 cases. A little
Yeah,
more.
I could check those numbers. I don't know last year's numbers off the top of my head. I just know we hasn't looked at the numbers for this year.
But
Total.
yeah, but that's a lot. That's too much, and that means we could, because it keeps growing, an outbreak here, an outbreak there, South Carolina, an outbreak keeps going. By January, if the numbers keep rising, then we will have lost our elimination status. And what that means and what that will look like, I don't know. I know that Brazil had lost it and then they regained the status.
Mhm.
It's careful public health policy that has to be implemented. It's it will take a lot of work, and it's if we lose that status, I can't imagine what our public health will look like. I don't know, because it hasn't happened in, like I said, 25 years.
Yeah. Um, and something somebody mentioned to me is that the population that was around before the vaccine is starting to die off. Anyone in their 60s and above, they would be in that population, maybe 65. I don't know the exact number. Not going to do the math right now, but there is a population that remembers what it was like before vaccines were around. Um, and what do you want people to know about what it was like during that time and why it's important to share these stories?
It's important to share the stories because when a vaccine works, you don't hear the stories. You don't know about the hardships and the heartaches and the way measles in particular can break up a family and really change the trajectory of that person's life and also shape the future of the siblings and the parents' lives. And you don't know about these stories because luckily the vaccine came in and stopped it. It's people say that the vaccine's a victim of its own success, and yeah, I just want people to know stories like my sister's do exist. People have become deaf, blind, poor balance. And now they're finding that measles has something called measles amnesia. So once you get it in the wild, you are left with you're left wide open to other viruses that your body previously fought. So that you have to rebuild, almost like don't quote me on like stem cell where you have to re-inoculate so that you build up immunity. So there's something that doctors, I think at Harvard, a doctor discovered something called measles amnesia. So it's a vaccine preventable disease. There's no reason why any parent should give an eligible child. And you're also helping your neighbor who is immunocompromised, who can't necessarily take a vaccine, or an infant who is too young. God forbid an infant. I know that this year there were 2 child deaths.
Yeah, 2 child deaths and 1 adult that
An adult.
that the CDC reports has died from measles in 2025.
Yeah, yeah, that we know of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just hope for the best for that person who you mentioned who had a rare reaction to it, but there are so many more people who it has benefited that you know um every parent should really think about that decision and make an informed decision when they treat their child.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story as well.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me the time to do it, Carrie. Thank you.
Mhm. All right, and before we go into my final interview, I want to give a little bit of background on the MMR vaccine. So, the measles vaccine was first licensed in 1963. Then in 1971, mumps and rubella was added, calling it the MMR vaccine. During this time, cases of the measles quickly began to drop. If you look at this graph, if you're listening, just imagine it. There are around 400,000 cases of the measles a year, and that dropped to maybe 1,000, if not less. So in the year 2000, measles was considered eliminated in the US, and doctors credit the vaccine for saving thousands of lives. But like any medication, any drug, it's not always perfect for everybody.
So I talked with Deirdre Downs, and her daughter Shaylee developed a rare side effect after getting the MMR vaccine. This is known as ITP. This stands for immune thrombocytopenia purpura. So this is a disorder where your platelets stop forming. You need your platelets to clot your blood. If you don't have enough platelets, you can bleed internally or externally. So this is a life-threatening condition. The CDC says this can happen to about 1 in 25,000 children after vaccination of MMR. So here is my interview with Deirdre Downs.
So tell me Shaylee's story, kind of starting from the beginning. What happened?
She was a completely healthy toddler, and we took her to get her MMR vaccine at about 26 months old. And a month later, she woke up with bruises on her legs. And within a 24-hour period, they went from small bruises to her whole body covered in bruises. She was having a nosebleed, and her mouth was bleeding, and she was really lethargic. And so we took her in to be seen, and they said her platelets were 2,000. So severely low, because they should be 189,000 to 350,000. So hers were very, very low, and they said it was a life-threatening situation. So they started her on medication and treatments, and thank God her platelets responded slowly but surely. They started going back up.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
and
she have any other reaction when she initially had the MMR vaccine?
nothing until she woke up with those bruises.
Yeah.
She didn't have a fever associated with it. She was fine until it was about 5 weeks after she received the vaccine. And they said because her platelets responded to the medication, they said it was a rare reaction to the vaccine.
That your doctors told
That's what the specialist told us. Yeah, that treated her.
believe that it was possibly a reaction from
Mhm.
the vaccine.
Yeah. And so they followed her closely for about 6 months. The medication and the treatments made her, she got better, but it made her not fully herself because there was nausea, and she just wasn't fully herself. And she suffered some hair loss that didn't really, um, it took about 18 months for her to be fully back to her healthy self.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So she was 2. She was a little bit older, almost 2, when
Yeah.
she received the first MMR.
Yeah.
Kind of what was going through your mind at this time? Because you said you vaccinated
We just
several of your other kids,
Yeah.
9 kids.
We did things differently over the years. I think the more vaccines that were recommended, we would space some out, we would delay some, and we did decline some vaccines. But by the time we had her, all of my other kids, so 7 kids before her, all had the MMR vaccine, and I I had an internal struggle with it because it was the one that I think I struggled with the most. That's why we delayed it a little bit, but
Why did you struggle with?
because of the risks associated with the MMR. Um, I think it was always something that kind of didn't sit right with me, but it's also one that is pushed, and so you want to do what's right for your child. But I, in hindsight, wish I listened to my like instincts.
Did any of your other kids have a reaction to that?
Not to the MMR. No.
Huh.
No.
So it's just her.
It was just her.
Um,
It doesn't feel like a rare occurrence when it happens to your child, obviously. Um,
okay, that was kind of going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Because the literature says it happens to about 1 in 25,000. But I think kind of what you're saying is rare a trigger word for you.
I think so. After experiencing what we did, it definitely changed my mind. She didn't get her second vaccine for the MMR, and our youngest, so our 9th baby, didn't receive her MMR at all.
Just because you were concerned about what.
Yeah.
Tell me what your hematologist, your blood doctor, or her blood doctor said about getting the second dose of MMR.
They said it wasn't necessary, and also that there was no way to guarantee that she wouldn't have that response again, because it's called ITP, and essentially it's that her immune system attacked her platelets, and really, when it does happen in association with a virus or even the vaccine, it's not so. I mean, this was life threatening. At 2,000, her levels being at 2,000, she could have just spontaneously internally bled to death. Or if the timeline had been different, it just could have been a very different outcome. As traumatic as it was, we're so lucky that she got the treatment that she needed, and they followed her closely, and they were wonderful. Um, but yeah, it was just a very hard time for our family. It was a very hard time.
And so that hematologist, was he saying, so he kind of said, we don't know if this is going to happen again?
Yeah, there's no way of knowing how anyone's body is going to respond to a vaccine. And for some reason, hers took it, and her body just attacked her platelets as a response to the whatever's in the vaccine.
Had she received any other vaccines prior?
For the MMR, no, that was her first.
There's MMR, but I mean other vaccines.
Some, not varicella. For chickenpox, we didn't do that.
Because that one does have the potential side
Yeah,
effects.
it was very few. It was very few.
You remember which other one?
I don't. I mean, I think one of the hepatitis ones. Really, that was. We don't do the rotavirus. We don't do flu shots. We don't do the COVID vaccine. I think it was one of the earlier hepatitis ones.
And to your memory, was she was fine for that?
She was fine. I mean, a low grade fever, but yeah, she never had a severe reaction to any other vaccine, but she also didn't have a lot.
So I think for me, I actually had ITP when I was 22 years old. Mine was idiopathic. They don't know what caused it. But in my case, I was on my menstrual cycle. And yeah, I basically could have bled out that way because my platelets weren't blocking blood from coming out of me. So I understand kind of where you're coming from with that, like how scary it can be. And in my case, it never returned.
Yeah.
But we do always wonder what could trigger it, like.
That's a worry I have as she gets older, or even just with viruses, because I know there's an association between having a virus and developing ITP. From what I understand, it's not common for it to be so severe, and for how fast it came on. I mean, we're talking less than 24 hours. It was little bruises on her shins, and then 5 hours later, it was huge welts everywhere. And
so they think she had internal bleeding, basically.
I mean, I guess that's internal bleeding, because it was nowhere that like she had bumped herself or fallen or anything. And even like for her mouth, just the act of like drinking out of her sippy cup, her entire mouth was filled with broken blood vessels and open sores within like 6 hours of me seeing those initial little bruises on her leg. And I think that's just how fast her platelets must have just been dropping slowly, but then it just took, I mean, for them to be so low, I think that's why it was such a dramatic response, because I mean, 2,000 is just like, this whole thing has made me like revisit and look at the paperwork and from the doctor, and just really, I mean, I feel like it's a miracle that she's here, just how bad it got so fast.
So you worried that, is another vaccine, if you were to give your child another vaccine, is your worry that that could be a trigger? Is your worry it's safe? Like what is?
Yeah, my worry would be that something like this would happen again. Especially since I already had my reservations about some vaccines. I think it's just, as a parent, you have to make informed decisions, and I feel like I tried to inform myself to make decisions like that, and feeling like it would be my fault if something else like that. It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to know what is right.
Did your hematologist suggest anything that could have caused? I mean, like,
It,
what about the MMR could have led to this? Like, did he have any or she have any?
they were an amazing team. And they just said it's the I think it's something about the antibodies in the MMR, or it's more about how the person's immune system reacts to what is in the MMR vaccine. Um, and for some reason, it's heavily linked with MMR, but I've never read anything that another vaccine is linked with developing ITP. Um,
But it hasn't come back since.
has not come back.
My goodness, she's healthy. Just tell you, like in my case, like once I got the proper treatment, it didn't reoccur.
Yep, she's healthy. Yeah.
Well, I'll have you come back for the.
Here, come sit here so she can talk to you, okay?
So you might get in the way of the camera
Yeah.
over there.
Girl.
Now, for this story, I did also interview someone who had congenital rubella syndrome. So her sister got that, meaning that when the mom was pregnant, the mom got rubella. This was before vaccine.
Yes.
And then her sister was born with rubella syndrome. And so she says, her sister is about 66 now, but has the age of a 5-year-old.
Wow.
I also interviewed somebody who has, her sister got encephalitis from getting measles before there was a vaccine. And yeah, she kind of described what happened with her sister and how her sister just wasn't the same after that. Mm. So, how do you process like making this decision? Because we know there are risks also if you don't get vaccinated.
Right.
So we want to make
Absolutely.
the best decision for our kids. So how do you process
I
that?
think it's just important to gather reliable information, and just take that and make your own personal decision. I think it's a very personal decision. For me, I'm more confident than ever in my decision to not vaccinate my kids anymore. I think it took going through something like that to get to that point. But I think it's important to ask questions and find a doctor who understands your concerns and helps you make what you feel like is the right decision when it comes to your children, because that's your responsibility as a parent, is to make an informed decision that you're comfortable with.
Yeah. So you have questions if the other vaccines would be safe for, particularly this child.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think there should be more studies done on why this is happening to some children?
Yes, I do. I do. And I think it's one of those things when it happens to you, it makes it feel not rare, like a rare occurrence. And it opens a door to finding out like how common it seems, how common it is. Um, when you have conversations with other parents and they share their stories, nothing quite as severe, but similar. And it just makes you uneasy, I think, as a parent.
Yeah. There really hasn't been much studied on the adverse side effect of vaccines. Do you think that's something that needs to change?
I think there needs to be more studies. Um, and again, I think it's important for doctors to keep that conversation open, um, because it's a tough decision to have to make. And the vaccine insert for the MMR does state, I don't know if it says ITP specifically, but it does state, um,
The side effect.
yeah, and you have to ask for the insert. I think it would be helpful for parents if it was kind of just like part of the process when you're at your pediatrician and they say, okay, these are the vaccines that we're recommending. Here are some potential side effects. But also, the other side, here are the side effects of not getting the vaccine and actually getting this illness. And then parents can take that and say, okay,
Kind of weigh the pros and cons.
and that's going to be different for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Um, There's a lot of hate that sometimes comes out of this conversation. How do you think we should have this talked about in a positive way where we can like have progressive
Yeah.
conversation?
I wish that there wasn't such a division between parents, or just people when it comes to vaccinating versus not vaccinating, or picking and choosing what you're going to do. Unfortunately, it brings out a really like ugly side of people on both sides, and it would be nice if more understanding on both sides could happen. Because I know I keep saying it, but it's not easy. I don't think most parents, I know for me, speaking for myself, I just, when I'm making any decisions for my children, it's something that I think about. Um, Generally speaking, if as a whole, when this hot topic of vaccines comes up, for there just to be some more understanding and compassion, um, because it's a tough decision that parents have to make.
Mhm.
And I don't think most parents take that lightly, whether they're deciding to vaccinate or not.
All right, so coming out of that interview, I want to conclude with any of the potential health complications from the measles versus any potential health complications from the MMR vaccine. So, first, we will start with the measles. This is according to the CDC. The CDC reports about 1 in 20 children who develop measles will also get pneumonia. And then they report about 1 in 1,000 children who contract measles will get encephalitis. That's what we mentioned before with the brain swelling. Some children will get what's known as SSPE. This is a very rare but fatal disease of the central nervous system that can develop years after a measles infection has cleared. And then some people will pass away. Of the about 1,700 cases so far this year in 2025, 3 people have died. Now we will explore the potential side effects of the MMR vaccine. So common side effects can include fever, mild rash, and soreness at the injection site. As I mentioned before in this story, about 1 in 25,000 children will get ITP after the MMR vaccine. And moderate side effects, this could be a febrile seizure. So that happens to about 1 in 3,000 to 1 in 4,000 people after the vaccine. And then another very rare side effect is vaccine-associated anaphylaxis. This is where a child has difficulty breathing. That happens to about 1 per 1 million doses. According to the Encephalitis International, about 1 in 1 million children who have been vaccinated with MMR develop encephalitis, but they say this is less than the incidence of all types of encephalitis, meaning that encephalitis happens more often in general from all cases like infections than it does as a reaction to the vaccine. All right, and now I will read a quote from the CDC's website about the MMR vaccine and autism. It says, because signs of autism may appear around the same time children receive the MMR vaccine, some parents may worry that the vaccine causes autism. Vaccine safety experts, including experts at the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, agree that the MMR vaccine is not responsible for recent increases in the number of children with autism. In 2004, a report by the Institute of Medicine concluded that there is no link between autism and the MMR vaccine. I want to thank you for listening in to this podcast. I'm sure I will cover more on vaccines in the future, but I thought this was an important conversation to hear from both sides, to hear what people have to say. With anything, even if it's not common, it doesn't mean that it's not impactful to your family. And I think that's one thing I've taken away from this story. So yeah, if you have any comments or stories or podcast subjects that you want me to cover, you can reach out. Again, my name is Kari Beal, and we release our podcast every Wednesday. Thanks for listening.